I used to think trust was a quiet thing, a coat you put on without checking the weather. With Lena, it always fit. With Mark, my best friend since freshman orientation, it felt like armor. We were a trio that didn't need a label. Dinners that ran late for no reason, road trips where the playlist outlasted the highway, birthdays where the candles were mostly a pretext to make fun of Mark's dramatic wish-making. If you'd asked me 6 months ago what could break us, I would have said money. Maybe distance. Not this. The first crack didn't look like a crack. It looked like kindness. Mark started offering to help Lena with her deck because her company was pushing a rebrand, and he was the design brain between us. "I'll swing by after my calls," he'd text. 30 minutes tops. 30 became 90, then, "I'll just finish this slide while it's fresh." I'd come home late from the client's site and find them shoulder to shoulder at our kitchen island. 2 empty mugs, Lena's hair caught up in a pencil like a careless halo. Mark would make a joke about my tragic tie. Lena would throw me that soft smile that says you and I are good, and the moment would pass like steam. I told myself what everyone tells themselves. It's fine. It's me. I'm overthinking it. She's with me. He's my brother in everything but blood. We're adults. Adults collaborate. Adults don't count minutes like teenagers. But trust doesn't break loudly. It frays where you don't look. I noticed it first in the calendar. We share one because we're the kind of couple who need to stop double booking Sundays. A new block appeared on Lena's Tuesdays and Thursdays, always 7 to 9:30 p.m. Pilates. She doesn't even like Pilates. She's a runner, the kind who calls 3 miles a shakeout. I teased her about it over stir-fry, and she laughed too quickly. New studio. Emma gave me a pass. They do reformer with music. It's actually fun. Since when are planks fun? Since I decided my back hates me, she said, and deflected with a kiss. Then there was her phone. Not the content, the position. Face down always, like a habit picked up overnight. When it buzzed, she'd hold the screen to her chest, tap, slip it into her back pocket. Little things that are nothing until they form a constellation. I told Mark on a Saturday morning while we kicked a ball around the park like we were 14 and didn't know about taxes. "She's different," I said, passing him the ball too hard. He trapped it with that lazy grace that used to make defenders cry. "Everyone's different in Q4, he said. "You're projecting. You get edgy when work blows up." "I know my own brand of edgy," I said. "This isn't it." He jogged closer, lightly bumped my shoulder. "Talk to her, man. Not to me. Couples who narrate are the ones who don't implode." He grinned. "Besides, who am I to judge? I've been married to deadlines all year." The joke landed. The feeling didn't move. One night, after she said she was grabbing Pilates then drinks, I folded laundry on the bed and found a receipt in her jeans pocket from a place that does not sell core strength. Rook and Thistle. 2 Negronis, 1 charred octopus, 1 burger, no pickles. Time stamped 9:12 p.m. The kind of place you book tables for, where the lighting makes everyone more beautiful, and the bill makes everyone quiet for a second. I took a photo, put it back. When she came home smelling like rosemary and citrus, she kissed me, breath sweet with gin, and said, "Traffic was awful." The next morning, I brewed coffee strong enough to stand up on its own and asked, as gently as I could, "How was Pilates?" She rubbed sleep from her eyes. "It's starting to click." "Why?" "No reason," I said, and swallowed a piece of truth so sharp it cut on the way down. I know what this sounds like. The prelude every fool narrates before the obvious drop. But I didn't go through her phone. I didn't follow her car. I didn't install anything. I did the one thing I thought could save what we'd spent years building. I asked for more time. Let's do a Friday, I said. Just us. No phones. No friends. No laptops trying to win awards. She smiled with that gentle relief people have when you hand them a script. Yes, she said. God, yes. I miss us. Friday came. She texted at 5:36, running behind. Mark stuck on a deck and I promised I'd proof the numbers. 20 minutes. Promise. I set the table anyway, lit the candles, put on the record we worked in college. At 6:10, she walked in, cheeks flushed with apology. I'm sorry, she said, pressing her forehead to mine. 2 slides. I swear. I wanted to be angry. Instead, I wanted to be done with wanting to be angry. We ate. We talked about a vacation we might never take. We laughed until it felt like earning oxygen. For an hour, I believed the story where stress is the villain, and we are the heroes with stamina. When she fell asleep on the couch with her feet tucked under my thigh, I watched the slow rise of her breath and told myself a kinder man would stop inventorying. A kinder man would put the receipt back in the jeans and let the world be average. The next day, Mark texted, "Come by the loft? New monitor finally arrived. Need a second pair of eyes before Monday." His loft is a corner of a co-working space 6 blocks from our apartment, the kind with exposed brick and succulents that outlive relationships. He practically lived there the past year, building a startup deck that pivots bi-weekly. I grabbed 2 coffees and headed over because this is what we do, we show up. Atlas smells like ambition and lemon cleaner. The front desk is a person who smiles like a loading bar. The elevator is one of those old beauties that makes everyone 20% more serious. I stepped off on 3 into a hallway that had seen more VC money than oxygen. Mark's corner was at the far end, a reclaimed wood table, a couch that thinks it's more comfortable than it is, a wall of glass looking out over a city pretending to be Paris. He wasn't there. A new ultra-wide monitor glowed with a login screen. His backpack slumped against the chair like a dog waiting by the door. "Yo!" I called, knocking on the metal door frame with one knuckle. A woman I'd seen once at a holiday party stuck her head around a divider, headphones hanging like jewelry. "He just ran to the kitchen," she said. "Grabbed the last of the brownies like a criminal." "Accurate," I said, and set the coffees down. I was about to text him when something small and stupid and life-altering happened. His laptop woke to a preview of a message, just for a second, the way machines tease you with information. A name lit the corner, bright and undeniable, Lena Redhart, and beneath it, a line. "Same time Tuesday? We can say Pilates." I didn't open it. I didn't touch the keyboard. I stared at that square inch of light like it was a lighthouse and a train collision at once. My heart did a thing that physiology would frown upon. Then the screen timed out. Mark's footsteps approached, careless as ever. He rounded the corner, brownie in mouth, and saw my face change in real time. He stopped. The smile slid off like a decal in heat. "You okay?" he asked, halfway between casual and alarm. "Show me your deck," I said, and my voice sounded like someone else had borrowed it for a moment. "Before you run out of slides." He chewed, swallowed, wiped a crumb from his lip like this was still a normal evening. He typed his password without looking. The home screen bloomed. Slack, Figma, 17 Chrome tabs, a desktop that made my inner organizer weep. He started presenting dilutions and go-to-market assumptions. I watched his mouth move and saw none of it. I saw a red heart next to my girlfriend's name and a sentence that made Pilates into a punchline. At some point he paused. "You're not here," he said softly, and I hated that he knows me that well, that a single sentence can be a mirror and a knife. "Do you ever get tired," I asked calmly, "of being the most charming person in every room?" It was a weird question. It landed weird. He leaned back and studied me, defenses cycling up behind his pupils. Where's this going? Kitchens, bars, lobbies, living rooms that aren't yours, I said. My living room, specifically. He exhaled, half a laugh, half a stall. We're not doing this, are we? Doing what? I said, and placed one of the coffees in front of him like a peace offering I already knew he'd refuse. Talking like adults, using nouns and verbs? He looked over my shoulder at the glass wall like a director checking the shot. If you're feeling insecure, he said, and there it was, the tone decent people use when they've done indecent things and need you to help them restore their self-image. We can pull back. I'll stop dropping by. Give you 2 space. I nodded slowly. That's generous, I said. But here's the thing, I'm not insecure. I'm observant. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened again. What did Lena say? He tried, eyes narrowing just enough for me to see the architecture of his fear. About Pilates? I said. That they do it with music. Sounds innovative. He smiled. It didn't arrive at his eyes. Pilates is code for, I need to not be at home doing spreadsheets. You know that. I thought of the receipt in her jeans, the face-down phone, the Tuesday that wasn't about glutes. I thought of the calendar block that turned my week into a scavenger hunt. I thought of the red heart that made my chest feel foreign. There's a part of every confrontation where you can choose melodrama or math. I chose math. Mark, I said quietly, I'm going to ask you a question like we're not 12. Do you need to lie to me right now because it protects me or because it protects you? The line must have been waiting behind his teeth because he said it fast. Nothing happened. I held up 2 fingers, index and middle. Is this the part where you say nothing happened and you mean no sex, and we get into a courtroom definition of verbs? Or is this the part where you say nothing happened and you mean everything happened except the thing you're afraid I already know? His jaw worked. He looked very much like a boy who'd been caught with a lighter near a curtain. We kissed, he said finally, a confession pitched like a plea bargain. Once. Twice. It was stupid. We stopped. We both felt terrible. It should have detonated me. Instead, it made a colder thing click into place. An admission that neat means practice. You don't go from we kissed to we stopped without a bridge of a few thousand messages saying maybe, and what if, and we shouldn't, and when. You kissed, I repeated, to get the word out in the air where it could stop disguising itself as a rumor. When? He rubbed his face. I don't know. Weeks. It blurred. After the fundraiser? She was frustrated. You were out of town. Don't do that, I said sharply. Don't draft me as the alibi for your impulse. He winced. To his credit, he didn't say the line people say when they're building new myths. We didn't mean to hurt you. People who steal cars rarely mean to hurt pedestrians either. It's not the point. Does she love you? I asked, surprising myself with the speed of it. He blinked. What? Simple question, I said. Does she love you? He laughed once, hopeless and ugly. She loves you, he said. She said that a lot? Not what I asked. He looked at the ceiling like there might be a nicer answer written in exposed ductwork. We didn't use that word. So you used which ones? I pressed. Alive. Seen. Finally. One of those. Or did you keep it to logistics and hydration breaks and restaurants with moody lighting? The brownie on his desk suddenly looked grotesque, too sweet in a room that tasted like rust. He tried a pivot. We can fix this. You and me. I'll disappear for a while. I'll disappear? I said, and the calm I'd been nursing like a fragile plant finally developed thorns. You are in every story I tell about my 20s. You're not a bar I can choose to avoid. You're the person my mother buys a second stocking for at Christmas. You are not optional. You are supposed to be the reason any stranger with eyes stops flirting with her because they can sense she is inside a circle drawn by men who would set themselves on fire to keep her warm. You do not kiss that circle. He swallowed. I know. Do you? I asked. Because if you did, you would have chosen a different room for your honesty. The door behind us slid open, and a couple in startup hoodies wheeled a whiteboard past like a coffin on casters. The world, rude as ever, kept happening. When it quieted again, I said, I'm going to make this very easy. I don't want your apology. It's either a garment you wear for a scene or a rope you hand me because you hope I'll pull you out. I don't want either. I want truth with nouns. I want a date. I want the number of Wednesdays. He stared at me. The monitor lit his face. He looked very, very young just then. You're going to burn me down, he said. I thought about that. Revenge had always looked messy to me when other people did it. Posting screenshots, screaming in lobbies, turning a private wound into a show that only made the audience more cynical. I didn't want to be a circus. I wanted to be a ledger. I'm going to end it clean, I said, which will feel like burning if you're used to living near gasoline. He nodded once, a defeated soldier saluting his own court-martial. 2 months, he whispered. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Not every week, but close. Thank you, I said, and meant it, which made me hate everything for a second. He looked at my coffees, the gesture that had belonged to another version of us, and then at me. Are we still? No, I said gently. We're not. He took that like a punch and a blessing. Does she know you know? Not yet. He rubbed the back of his neck. Then let me tell her. I owe you that. I shook my head. You owed me 1,000 things and paid none of them. I'll tell her. You go home and think about all the ways the word friend can still be pronounced in your mouth without turning to glass. For a long moment we sat there, 2 boys wearing men's clothes in a city that forgives everything except naivete. I stood. So did he. We didn't hug. That ritual belongs to people who can still return to old maps. In the hallway, the lemon cleaner hit me like a cheap resurrection. I pressed the elevator button, watched the numbers descend. Inside the mirrored box, I saw my face and didn't flinch. That felt like progress. By the time I hit the lobby, I had the beginning of a plan that was not a show and not a scream. It would require 1 rented room, for chairs, a screen, and the gentlest kind of cruelty, the kind that uses facts. Outside, the wind had teeth. I pulled my jacket tighter and took the long way home, past the bodega where Lena and I learned the owner's dog's name, past the bar where Mark bet me $50 I wouldn't sing karaoke and paid up when I butchered Springsteen into immortal shame. I stood across the street from our building and watched the light in our living room, warm as a lie. I could see her silhouette moving between the couch and the window, a silhouette I would recognize in a power outage at the end of the world. I climbed the stairs slowly. At the door, I paused long enough to imagine a different scene, me walking in, putting the coffees down, saying it softly, I know. Her face caving in. The apologies stacking like dishes. The decision not to drop the entire stack on the floor. Instead, I opened the door and smiled. We made dinner. We talked about nothing. We pretended the future was a sweater we could both still wear. In bed, she curled toward me like gravity. Are we good? She murmured. We will be, I said to the dark. It wasn't a lie. It just didn't include her. I lay awake until the red numbers changed to 207. Then I got up, opened my laptop at the kitchen island where they'd proofed my absence, and wrote 3 emails. One to a manager of a small event space that rents by the hour. One to my sister who hugs like honesty. And one to myself, containing a photo of a receipt, a summary of a Slack preview, and a sentence in all caps that made my hand stop shaking. We end this on our terms. On the counter, 2 mugs waited from the last time my best friend made coffee in my home. I washed them both with unnecessary care, dried them with a blue towel we bought at a street market in Lisbon, set them upside down to drain like little white domes. When the sun finally started, I had a room booked, a date set, and a list titled things you can carry out of a fire without burning your hands. At the top of it was my name. The room I rented was the kind of neutral that refuses to take sides. White walls, black chairs, a portable projector on a rolling cart. A bowl of keys on the credenza held nothing but the last tenant's idea of whimsy. Outside, rain needled the city into a hush. Inside, the HVAC hummed like a throat clearing before a verdict. I set 4 chairs in a shallow crescent, 2 left, 2 right, and taped the power cable so no one could trip, and called it the story. On the screen, my laptop idled on a simple title card, Wednesdays and Thursdays. No logos. No flourish. I wasn't staging theater. I was staging light. Maya arrived first, early like dignity. She hugged me, then stepped back and searched my face the way a medic searches for unseen wounds. "You sure?" she asked. "No," I said. "But I'm ready." "Same thing tonight," she said, and took a seat at the far left, hands folded, neutral as Switzerland, loyal as a lighthouse. At 6:58, Lena texted, "On my way. Traffic." At 6:59, Mark texted, "Running late." Of course they did. People who move the line always move the clock. I replied to neither, and breathed until my ribs remembered how. Lena arrived at 7 on the dot, coat clutched at the throat like the weather had teeth. She slowed at the door, took in the chairs, the screen, my sister, and the way my jaw wouldn't unclench. "What is this?" she asked, forcing brightness onto the words like frosting on a dry cake. "A room where we don't pretend," I said, and gestured to a chair. She sat with the cautious grace of someone who knows a stage when she sees it, and hates that she recognizes her mark. Mark walked in at 7:04, shaking rain from his hair as if he could fling off consequence. He clocked the setup, then did the thing he does, smiled like this could be massaged into a conversation between reasonable men. "You could have just called," he said lightly. "I did," I said. "For 2 months." He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets and took the seat furthest from mine, diagonally across, like he could triangulate an exit with posture alone. I stood. "Thank you for coming. I'm not asking for speeches. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for clarity. We will watch something. Then I will speak exactly once. Then I'll leave. After that, you can decide if you want to schedule the rest of your life with each other or with a mirror." Lena's voice was small. "Can we talk first? Privately? Privately is what got us here," I said, and pressed play. The lights dimmed, the projector exhaled. On screen, the first slide was not a gotcha, it was a calendar. Color-coded blocks for Pilates on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My own meetings paled behind them like ghosts at noon. Then a dissolve to the date-stamped photo of the rook and thistle receipt. The room stayed very, very quiet. I kept it administrative. A location ping laid over a map with a clean line to Atlas Co-working. A 5-second screen recording of a Slack preview. Lena's name, the red heart. "Same time Tuesday? We can say Pilates." If they blinked, they could pretend it had said anything else. If they didn't, it said exactly enough. Mark shifted, cleared his throat. "This is Out of context. He tried, because of course he did. Everything is, when you build the wrong context, Maya said, calmer than a closed door. I let the last frame hang. A simple list of dates, no narration, just a count at the bottom. Tuesdays and Thursdays. 12. Then I paused the video and raised the lights a fraction. I didn't play the recording from his loft. I didn't print the screenshots I could have made if I'd wanted to be the internet. I had brought enough truth to light the room and no more. I told myself, I said, voice steady, that if this ever happened to me, I would explode. Turns out I just learned to project. I nodded toward the screen. I'm not here to ask why. Why is a vanity metric? I'm here to say the nouns and leave them undisturbed. Lena had been staring at the floor so hard you'd think it was hatching a solution. Now she looked up at me, eyes bright, mouth set. I was unhappy, she said, and the awful thing was how true it sounded, how comprehensible, how real. We stopped, meeting each other. He was light where you were steady. I thought I could fix it by pretending I was still the person who deserved your steadiness. You could have told me you were drowning, I said, and I would have learned how to swim while carrying you. I was ashamed, she whispered, and shame makes cowards. Mark leaned forward, elbows on knees, a man about to mistake contact for connection. I own my part, he said, performative humility perfectly pitched. We kissed. We crossed lines. We didn't. He let the sentence dangle into space where people usually reach for legalistic modesty. I never wanted to hurt you. You just didn't want to be bored, I said. And you mistook my trust for an unlocked door. He flinched. I offered to disappear. You can't disappear from the last 10 years, I said. You can only leave them be. Silence again, not empty, waited. The projector fan kept it small, weather humming above us. This is what happens next, I said, and pulled an envelope from my bag, slid it to the center of the crescent. I'm moving out tonight. Temporary. I'll send my schedule so you can collect your things when I'm not home. I handed a second envelope to Lena. This is a fair split, per the apartment agreement and the balances. I won't argue. I won't freeze you out. I won't go nuclear on your job, your friends, or your parents. Tell them whatever helps you live with yourself, as long as it doesn't turn me into a villain to make the story easier to swallow. She reached for the envelope with hands that suddenly remembered how to shake. I don't deserve this kindness. It isn't kindness, I said. It's boundary. Mark stood, then sat, then stood again. And me? He asked, like a child testing how fast gravity works. You and I don't know each other anymore, I said. If we meet, we nod. If someone asks me about you, I say you were my friend and now you aren't. I won't campaign. I won't curate. I will. I searched for the word that didn't felt like a knife. Abstain. He swallowed. He's always been pretty until guilt arrives. Do you want my keys? Your spare? The jacket at your place? I almost laughed. The list of small artifacts felt suddenly like a museum gift shop of a show I hadn't enjoyed. Leave the keys with the doorman. Keep the jacket. I don't want to see you in it, and I don't want it without you. He nodded, folded in on himself. I wondered if he'd spend the next year trying to become a better man or a better liar. Either way, it would keep him busy. Lena stood, too. Is there any version where we try? She asked, and I loved her for having the nerve to put the question on the table even if the answer was a door. No, I said gently. Not because you are unforgivable, but because we would be building on wet paper. I won't live in a house that expects me to ring the bell before I walk in. She blinked, a single slow shudder. Then say the thing. The clean thing. So I can stop bargaining with nothing. I closed my eyes once, opened them. We're over. She breathed out like a held plank. She finally sat down. Okay. Maya rose, placed a hand on Lena's shoulder. The type of human contact that says I witness your worst day without celebrating it, and then slipped it away. No absolution. Just temperature. I turned off the projector. The room brightened without us. Rain flattened the city outside. We left in a staggered choreography that felt merciful. Mark first, fast, then Lena, carrying the envelope like a fragile instrument, then Maya, pausing in the doorway to look back at a screen that now reflected nobody. I stayed last, coiling the cable, sticking the tape back on itself so the adhesive wouldn't collect dust. It was, stupidly, the most tender thing I did all night. Before I shut off the lights, I stood in the center of the room and said, to no one in particular, "Thank you." It wasn't gratitude. It was punctuation. I carried the last box to the trunk of a borrowed car and didn't slam it. The rain had turned to a drift of mist that made everything look like it remembered being a dream. Down by the river, the city lights painted the water with restless gold. I started walking without deciding to. The path was empty except for a runner who looked like a promise I didn't feel ready to keep. My phone vibrated twice. Maya, I'm proud of you. Then, after a minute, eat. I texted back a photo of a sad granola bar and a bench like a confession. She answered with a laughing emoji and a heart that felt like a blanket. I found a dry enough spot under an overhang and sat, boxy umbrella rattling in the wind, rain threading the air in diagonal stitches. The city was its endless self. I was a smaller creature learning, again, how to be a single noun. When the anger tried to rise, I let it and didn't invite it to sit. When the memories tried to negotiate, I told them politely to set a calendar invite in 6 months. My jaw unclenched the way a fist does when it realizes the fight is over and the opponent was never going to apologize, like you wrote in your head. A couple strolled by, the easy kind of love that doesn't know it's being observed. I didn't feel jealous. I felt like I was a scientist observing a species I might one day rejoin. For now, I still had the lab coat on. I took out my notebook, cheap, spiral-bound, humble as toast, and made a list titled Unaccusing Habits. It was dumb on purpose. Floss. Call Dad on Sundays. Run when it isn't raining, walk when it is. Read 1 page before bed that isn't a screen. Say yes to dinners that don't require you to perform. Then I flipped the page and wrote Wednesdays in the center and circled it until the pen almost broke through. A message arrived from an unknown number. "This is Elise from Atlas. You don't know me. I heard. For what it's worth, he'll call what you did cruel." It wasn't. It was accurate. I wrote back. "Thank you." She replied. "I'm sorry." I typed. "Me too." Then deleted it and said nothing. Not all sentences need to exist. The rain lightened to that respectful kind that lets you think without punishing you for being outdoors. I watched a barge push the river around like willpower. The city kept scrolling. Somewhere, in an apartment that used to be ours, a dresser was missing my socks and a bookshelf was deciding whether to keep a picture that had 2 faces in it. Somewhere, in a co-working loft with succulents that never die, a man was composing the first draft of his rehabilitation. Somewhere, in a rented room still warm from our breathing, a white screen remembered our bad movie. The future arrived precisely on time, disguised as nothing. The far-off clatter of dishes from a restaurant patio reopening after rain. The sound of a bus sighing at a stop. A gull deciding, idiotically, to investigate my granola wrapper. I shoot it gently. It forgave me immediately. Forgiveness is easier for creatures who don't expect each other to be mind readers. I stood stretched, texted Maya. "Home now." She sent a thumbs up and, "Soup in your fridge. Do not insult me by ordering fries." I smiled and promised her I would, and knew I wouldn't, and also knew she would forgive me for that particular betrayal when she saw the empty container tomorrow. At the car, I looked at myself in the window's wobbly reflection. It showed a man who had lost 2 people and regained his face. Not a hero, not a martyr, just a person who didn't throw a plate when a projector would do. I said out loud, because sometimes you have to hear it leave your mouth. I kept my name. On the drive back, traffic lights made small altars at every corner. I stopped at each and didn't rush the green. Near the bridge, the radio offered me a song we ruined together once. I turned it down until it was only bass and rode. At home, my next temporary definition of the word. I unpacked the box. 3 shirts, a mug, the blue towel from Lisbon. I made the soup, stood at the counter, ate, and didn't post any of it because my audience was 1 and he was tired. Before bed, I opened the calendar app and deleted the recurring Pilates blocks like a priest dismissing a congregation no longer in session. In their place, I added a small, stupid thing at the same times. Call Maya if you forget why. No one else was invited. I lay down, listened to rain finish its job, and thought about the room, the keys, the screen, the sentence. There's a temptation, after you execute a plan without drama, to wonder if you should have screamed more. Maybe screaming would have made it feel more like a movie. Maybe a plate breaking would have returned some inventory. I decided I liked the quiet. Quiet doesn't mean weakness. It means you hired the right tool. My phone lit once on the nightstand. A message from Lena that I let pass like weather. Thank you for how you ended it. I will carry the way you did that longer than I'll carry what I wanted. I didn't reply. I didn't need to be the person who taught her the moral all the way to the parking lot. Sleep took me in segments, like a bus with too many stops. At 3, I woke and didn't reach for my phone. I watched the ceiling and counted the hum of the building and realized that, for the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for a door to open that shouldn't. The only footsteps belong to my upstairs neighbor, and the cat he pretends is a dog. In the morning, the city put on its weekday voice. I made coffee in the 1 mug I'd brought, and it tasted like a thing that might be worth doing daily again. I put on shoes with laces, not because I was going anywhere important, but because slip-ons felt like a metaphor for a life I no longer wanted, easy to exit, easy to lose. At the threshold, I looked back at the room, 2 boxes, 1 plant Maya insisted I adopt, a couch I intend to replace when I'm done apologizing to my spine, and I smiled, small and private. I locked the door behind me and walked into a morning that did not know what I had done and did not need to. On the river path, the gull from last night eyed me like we were old colleagues. I saluted it with my coffee and kept going. An older man in a bright windbreaker jogged past and said, for no reason and every reason, "Beautiful day." I said, "It is," and meant it enough to keep the sentence. At the first light, my phone buzzed once. A calendar reminder I'd set at 2 in the morning, future me pleading a favor from a version he trusted. It read simply, "Wednesdays are yours." I laughed, a sound with edges but not barbs, and crossed on the green.